All stories published by Epic Yarn are fictional works intended for mature audiences. These narratives are submitted by a diverse community of contributors and subscribers created solely for entertainment and storytelling purposes. They do not represent real events or individuals, and no claims of factual accuracy are made. Additionally, all accompanying images are generated using AI technology to visually enhance the fictional experience.
Chapter 1. Big Wood Delivery. Max Alexander Newman stood on the porch of the sleek glass and cedar house halfway up Pine Hollow Road, gripping a bundle of redwood beams across one shoulder and trying not to sweat more than usual. He told himself it was the July heat. It wasn't. It was him. Jacob Elias Perry, the city architect with the movie star name and those fuck-you cheekbones. He'd only been in town a few months, but Max had been knocking on his door more often than he cared to admit. Not that he was counting. Not that he ever stayed long. Not that he ever said anything remotely close to what he was thinking. Which, currently, was, goddamn, he's barefoot again. Jacob opened the door in black joggers and a thin, gray tank top that left little to the imagination. His hair was still damp from a shower. A pair of glasses sat low on his nose, and Max wasn't sure if it was the frames, the arms, or the man inside them, but his throat went dry. Jacob smiled. "Morning, Max. Is that my wood?" Max swallowed. "Twice. Yeah. Hope you like it big." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Just one," then stepped back from the doorway like he was giving Max space to embarrass himself further. "Is there another kind?" Max nearly dropped the damn beams. He carried them inside, trying to focus on the wood in his arms, not the one forming in his jeans. The living room smelled like citrus cleaner and eucalyptus. Everything was crisp, curated, probably expensive. And then there was Jacob, lounging against the kitchen island like he didn't even know what he was doing. "I wasn't sure if you wanted them stacked outside or—" "Inside's fine," Jacob said, voice low, amused. "I like seeing what I'm working with." Max cleared his throat and crouched to unload the lumber, letting the weight of it distract him from the warmth of Jacob's eyes on his back. He could feel it, like sunlight, but smarter. When he straightened, Jacob was close. Too close, holding out a glass of water. "You look like you just came out of a sauna," he said. Max took the glass, his fingers brushing Jacob's. "Well, it's hot as balls out there." Jacob sipped from his own glass. "You planning to build it for me, too?" "The pergola." Max shifted, unsure if it was nerves or need making him twitch. "If you want." "I do." Jacob held his gaze. "Want that. And maybe more." A beat passed. Max laughed too quickly. "More? Like a patio extension?" Jacob didn't blink. "Something like that." For a second, neither of them moved. The air felt thick, like the heat had crept indoors and wrapped around them both. Max could feel the flush creeping up his neck. He forced a smile, stepping back. "Well, I should, get going. Got 2 more deliveries today." Jacob nodded. "Easy. No push, no pressure." "Thanks for the wood, Max." Max turned, walked toward the door, and didn't trip, which felt like a minor miracle. He was halfway down the porch steps when Jacob's voice called after him. "I do like it big, by the way." Max didn't look back. He just laughed under his breath, ran a hand over the back of his neck, and tried not to picture Jacob's mouth when he said it. Chapter 2. Sawdust and Sketches. Max told himself he was just being neighborly. That's what people did around here. Helped out, showed up, brought tools, built shit together. Nothing weird about it. Didn't matter that he'd been shaving more often since Jacob moved in, or that he'd spent 20 minutes this morning deciding which shirt showed his arms best without looking like he tried. He chose the black tank. Said Ridge Logging Company across the chest in faded white. It clung in all the right places and showed off a streak of his old military tattoo. Just enough. When he showed up at Jacob's place, the guy was already outside, barefoot again, sketchbook in one hand, pencil tucked behind one ear. "Hey, soldier," Jacob called from the porch. "Ready to build me something hard?" Max blinked. "You mean the pergola, or are you flirting with me again?" Jacob smiled like that wasn't even a question. Little of both. Max huffed out a laugh, but his chest tightened. Joking was one thing. Joking back felt dangerous. They laid the beams out in the backyard, the smell of fresh-cut redwood mixing with sun-warmed grass and the soft breeze rolling down from the hills. Max worked in a rhythm, grounding himself in the weight of the wood and the steady swing of the mallet. But Jacob was always close, passing him nails, holding pieces in place, asking questions with that maddening curiosity that made Max feel seen in ways he wasn't used to. "You always this quiet when you're working?" Jacob asked, crouched beside him, elbow brushing Max's. "I'm not quiet. You're practically a monk." Max shot him a sidelong look. "Monks don't get this sweaty." Jacob's eyes dropped to Max's chest, then his throat. "Shame." Max froze. Not visibly, but he felt it, like the world slowed half a beat. He turned back to the beam he was anchoring. "I'm just focused," he said. Jacob didn't reply. He just stood, walked around behind Max to hold a crossbeam steady. Max could feel the heat of him behind his shoulder, the ghost of breath near his neck. His arms strained as he secured the bolts, muscles flexing, sweat sliding slow down his back. "Tell me something," Jacob said. Max exhaled. "What? Why'd you say yes to this?" Jacob hummed. "To me." Max didn't answer. He didn't know how. Instead, he stood and reached for the next piece. Jacob followed. At some point, he'd taken his shirt off, now in loose joggers and nothing else, lean muscle and golden skin catching the sun like something out of a dream. Max tried not to stare. Failed. Tried again. "You're blushing," Jacob said lightly, walking over with a smirk. "It's 95 degrees out," Max shot back. Jacob didn't stop. He stepped right up to Max, hand lifting slowly, not rough, not teasing, and brushed sawdust from Max's chest. Right over his heart. Slow strokes, soft circles. Thumb trailing down a bit further than necessary. Max stopped breathing. "Just for a second." "You missed a spot," Jacob murmured. Max swallowed hard, the tension rising like a live wire between them. He looked down at Jacob's hand, then up at his mouth. He almost kissed him. Almost. But then the breeze shifted, and Max stepped back. "I should finish the joints," he said, voice rough. Jacob nodded once, expression unreadable now. Of course. They worked in silence for the next half hour, the sun heavy, the air tight. Every movement felt like a question that hadn't been asked yet. Max didn't know what Jacob wanted exactly, but he was starting to get scared he wanted it too. Chapter 3. Nailed it. Max knew better than to lose focus on the job. But then Jacob laughed, this low, open laugh that came from his whole damn body, and Max looked up at the wrong time. The hammer slipped. The wood bit back. Shit. Jacob was at his side before Max even had a chance to cuss properly. "Let me see," Jacob said, voice sharper than usual. "I'm fine," Max grunted, clutching his left hand against his chest. "Uh-huh. That why you're bleeding all over my pavers." Jacob reached for his wrist. Max didn't move in time to stop him. It wasn't that bad. A torn flap of skin, smeared blood, probably didn't need stitches, but it throbbed like hell, and Max wasn't used to feeling fragile. Not in front of him. Jacob's fingers were gentle but firm. "Come inside." Max hesitated. "Max," Jacob said, using his full name this time, not soldier or woodsman or some teasing drawl. So Max followed. Jacob's kitchen smelled like lemon and cedar and faint traces of coffee. He led Max to the sink, flicked on the tap, and ran his hand under cold water before Max could protest. "You ever let anyone take care of you?" Jacob asked. Max flinched. "Not really my thing." Jacob's voice softened. "Maybe it should be." He cleaned the cut in slow, careful motions. Max stared at the side of his face, his jawline, the mole on his neck, the way his glasses slid down when he leaned in. The world outside blurred. It was just the two of them, close, too close, with the kind of heat that had nothing to do with the summer sun. "You've got good hands," Jacob murmured, wrapping a strip of gauze. "Big, strong, but you're gentle." Max tried to laugh it off. "You noticing my hands now?" "I've noticed everything." Silence stretched, heavy and full. Jacob met his eyes then. "You don't have to keep pretending like you don't feel this." Max's stomach clenched. His throat tightened. He should have said what? Or feel what? Something to buy him space. But he didn't. He looked at Jacob's mouth instead. They were inches apart. The air between them pulsed with possibility, sharp and sweet. Max felt it in his chest, his gut, his fucking fingertips. Jacob leaned in just enough for Max to feel the heat of him. Cheek to cheek, breath to breath. And still, Max pulled away. "I can't," he said quietly. Jacob froze. Max shook his head. You're smart and clean and brilliant. You design buildings, man. I chop down trees and haul shit. I'm just a lumberjack." Jacob blinked, confused. What the hell does that? I should go. Max stood fast, knocking the kitchen stool sideways. He muttered something about needing to finish the beam alignment and backed toward the door. Jacob didn't chase him. He just stood there, hands still stained with Max's blood, brow furrowed like he'd just been told something in a language he didn't understand. The screen door creaked as Max stepped out. The silence felt louder than anything. And Jacob watched him go, jaw tight, chest rising slow, like he was holding back something that wanted to break. Chapter 4, Whiskey and Walls. Max didn't bother with a glass. He sat on the edge of his creaky couch with the bottle of Old Forester sweating in one hand and the ghost of Jacob Perry still clinging to the other. His palm burned where Jacob had touched it. Gentle. Sure. Unafraid. He hated that. He hated how easy Jacob made it look. Connection, kindness, reaching for things that might hurt. Max didn't know how to want someone without also fearing the crash. The cabin was quiet except for the hum of the old fridge and the rhythmic thud of rain starting to fall on the tin roof. The place was small, lived in, spare. Everything wood, leather, and iron. No art on the walls. No photos. Nothing soft. Max tilted the bottle back, let the bourbon burn down his throat, and let the memories in. Flashback. It was desert. It was dust. It was screaming through the calms and blood in his mouth and the taste of copper on everything. Max had been the last one out. The mission was supposed to be clean, recon, extraction. Standard. But nothing went to plan. The truck exploded before they made it off the ridge. He dragged 2 men out, fire singeing the edge of his camo. And by the time he got to Samuel's, the guy was already gone. There was a split second, just one, when Max saw his face, saw his eyes, wide and scared and frozen like they knew. And then nothing but smoke and silence. He blinked, back in his cabin, back in the dark. The whiskey didn't take the edge off like it used to. Max rested the bottle between his thighs, staring at the knotted grain of the floorboards. He knew what it looked like, that moment in Jacob's kitchen. Another hot guy with walls, doing the emotionally unavailable routine like it was charming instead of cowardly. But Jacob had touched him like he meant it. Like he wasn't afraid of what he might find underneath. And Max had bailed like he always did. Fucking textbook. Meanwhile, across town, Jacob stood in his studio, pacing slow in front of his drafting table, phone balanced between shoulder and ear. I don't care what Max does, he told Leo, his oldest friend from the city. I like him. He flicked his pencil across the table, frustrated. But he keeps running. I open the door, he closes it. I touch him, he disappears. Leo's voice crackled through the speaker. So go knock on his door. Jacob sighed. It's not that simple. Maybe it is. You're just used to men who beg to be understood in lowercase text messages. This one's an actual person. Jacob laughed despite himself, bitter and tired. He said he's just a lumberjack. And you're just a gay architect with abandonment issues. See? Match made in therapy. Jacob went quiet. The silence lingered. He looked scared, he said finally. When I touched him, not like he didn't want it. Like he did, and didn't trust himself to have it. Leo paused. Then be patient. But don't be passive. Jacob ran a hand through his hair. The house was too quiet. Too clean. He hated it. He stared out the window toward the pines where Max had disappeared a few hours ago, his chest tight. I want him, Jacob said softly. Not just to fuck him. I want him. Back at the cabin, Max stood barefoot by the window, watching the storm roll in. He didn't know what Jacob wanted from him. But whatever it was, it scared the hell out of him. Because maybe, deep down, he wanted it too. Chapter 5, The Naked Truth. It was the kind of rain that blurred the whole world. Thick, slanting sheets that drowned the hills in silver and soaked through to the skin in seconds. Jacob was barefoot again, this time standing by his front window, watching the trees sway under the storm. He was sipping tea, trying not to think about Max, which meant of course he was thinking about Max. He didn't expect the knock. Didn't expect to open the door and find him standing there, drenched and shivering in a clingy black t-shirt, water dripping off his jaw, dark hair plastered to his forehead. Pergola okay? Max said, deadpan, like he wasn't soaked to the bone, like he hadn't ghosted Jacob for 3 days and then showed up looking like wet sin and regret. Jacob leaned in the doorway, arms folded. You walked through a goddamn monsoon to check a pergola? Max shrugged, avoiding his eyes. Could have collapsed. Rain hits hard in these parts. Jacob stepped aside without a word. Max walked in slowly, boots squelching on the hardwood, rainwater puddling under his feet. Jacob closed the door, leaned back against it, and watched him. "Take off your shirt." Max blinked. "Jesus, Perry, buy a guy dinner first. You're dripping." And stalling. Max's jaw worked like he wanted to argue, but he peeled the shirt off over his head. The wet fabric clung for a second, then gave way, revealing slick skin, defined muscle, the long scar under his ribs Jacob hadn't seen before. Max dropped the shirt on the floor. His breath was shallow. His eyes wouldn't meet Jacob's. "Why are you really here?" Jacob asked, voice low and quiet now. Max was silent. "You keep showing up, then running. You touch me like you want to burn, then vanish like it's a mistake. I'm not asking for poetry, Max. Just the truth." Max looked up finally, jaw clenched, eyes soft. "I don't know how to do this." "This?" Jacob stepped forward, slow. "You mean be wanted?" Max nodded. "Barely." Jacob reached out, hand hovering near Max's chest. "I want you." Max closed his eyes. "Don't." "Why?" "Because I'll want you back." Jacob didn't answer. He just kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was months of glances and loaded silences and accidental touches, all crashing at once. Max made a sound low in his throat, half sigh, half growl, and kissed him back like he couldn't help it. Jacob pushed him gently against the wall, mouth parting his, hands sliding up his bare sides. Max grabbed at Jacob's hips, desperate and aching, the heat between them boiling over. Clothes came off fast. Jacob's shirt hit the floor. Max's jeans slid down over soaked skin. They stood half-naked in the hallway, panting, touching, biting lips, grabbing whatever they could reach. Jacob pulled back just enough to whisper, "Bed." Max froze. Just a second. But Jacob felt it. Max's hands trembled where they gripped his waist. His breath stuttered. He pulled back, eyes darting like he was waking from a dream. "I can't." Jacob didn't move. "Why?" "Because if we do this, it's not just sex. Not for me." "Okay. I'm not." Max swallowed. "I'm not built for people like you." Jacob's voice was steady, even as his heart cracked. "What do you think I am, Max?" Max stepped back, grabbing his shirt from the floor. "I'm sorry," he whispered. He was gone before Jacob could answer. Left nothing but water on the floor and a storm still raging outside. Chapter 6. Harder than it looks. Max was good at hiding. Not literally. Though with a cabin tucked deep in the woods, that helped. He was good at pretending nothing was wrong. Cutting trees. Fixing fences. Dropping off lumber like nothing ever touched him. Like his body hadn't been pressed against Jacob's 3 nights ago. Wet and naked and trembling on the edge of something that could have changed everything. He hadn't texted. He hadn't called. He kept himself busy. Chopping, hauling, lifting, moving. Doing anything except feeling. But feeling crept in anyway. In quiet hours. In dreams. In the way his hand ached where Jacob had touched it. Jacob, meanwhile, wasn't hiding. He was furious. He poured every ounce of it into his work. Sketches scattered across his drafting table like emotional debris. Structures with clean lines and sharp angles. Angry lines softened only by the occasional, unconscious curve that looked a lot like Max's shoulder. He tried not to care. Told himself Max had made his choice. But then came the whispers. At the grocery store. At the lumberyard. At the town bar. "You see how Max looks at him? Jacob Perry? That city got. He's got Max acting like a kicked dog in heat. Bet he split when things got real." Figures. The gossip wasn't mean. Just curious. Small-town curious. But Jacob had lived long enough in cities to know when someone was saying, "He likes you. So what are you going to do about it?" He showed up at Max's cabin just before dusk. The trail was muddy. His loafers were a mess. He didn't knock, just pushed open the door, uninvited, unbothered, done pretending. Max was shirtless, standing at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a pot like it had personally wronged him. He turned fast, eyes wide, muscles flexing like instinct. Jacob shut the door behind him. "I'm not here to talk." Max blinked. "Then why?" Jacob crossed the floor in 5 steps and kissed him. No lead up. No hesitation. Just mouth on mouth. Firm. Sure, finally. Max froze for a second, stunned. Then he kissed back like he'd been starving. The pot clanged to the floor. Jacob's hands fisted in the back of Max's hair. Max gripped Jacob's hips, dragged him closer until they were chest to chest, skin on skin, heat building fast. They stumbled down the hallway, knocking into the doorframe, into each other, into need. Max pinned Jacob to the wall with a growl. You don't know what you're doing. Shut up, Jacob gasped, biting at Max's lower lip. I know exactly what I'm doing. They tore clothes off each other like something wild had taken over. Jacob's shirt ripped at the hem. Max's jeans hit the ground. Jacob's hand slid over hard muscle, old scars, the kind of body built for survival and war. Max lifted him, like he weighed nothing, and carried him into the bedroom, dropping him onto the bed with a thud. Last chance, Max said, breathing hard. Jacob stared up at him, flushed and wrecked. Then take it. Max did. He kissed like a man trying to taste everything he'd denied himself. Jacob arched under him, moaning into his mouth, grinding up until they moved together, slow, rough, full of hunger and heat, and something that felt too big to name. It wasn't soft. It was real. Max buried himself in Jacob like he'd been waiting his whole life for a place to land. Jacob took every thrust with a gasp and a curse, hands gripping Max's shoulders, dragging him closer, tighter, deeper. Their mouths never stopped. Hands everywhere. Sweat, teeth, breath. When they came, it was together, loud, shaking, exhausted, broken open. And afterward, they didn't speak. Max curled around him, still catching his breath. Jacob stared at the ceiling, fingers brushing Max's chest. They weren't fixed. Nothing was solved. But for the first time, they were in the same place, messy, naked, and not running. Chapter 7. Morning Wood. Jacob woke to the sound of birds and the feel of him, warm, heavy, solid. Max lay on his side, one arm flung around Jacob's waist, breath deep, and even against the back of Jacob's neck. They were still mostly naked under a rough wool blanket, tangled together in a bed that smelled like pine, sweat, and sex. Jacob smiled to himself, stretched, felt the ache in his thighs and the dull soreness in his hips, and thought, yeah, that happened. It hadn't been gentle, but it hadn't been careless either. It was the kind of fucking that said, I need you more than I want you. And now, in the quiet morning light, it felt like they hadn't just had sex. They'd let each other in. Max shifted behind him, groaning softly, his morning hard-on unmistakably pressed against Jacob's lower back. Jacob smirked. Good morning to you too. Max made a half-conscious sound. You talk too much. Jacob turned over, facing him, their noses almost touching. And you grind in your sleep. Liar. But Max was smiling now, bare, sweet, sleepy. Jacob kissed the corner of his mouth. Coffee. God, yes. Black. Strong. Like your attitude. Jacob rolled out of bed, grabbing a wrinkled shirt off the floor and padding into the kitchen. The cabin was small but cozy, the kind of place that felt like it belonged to someone who'd run from the world but still wanted to live in it. He found the percolator, rinsed it, filled it, fumbled with the buttons, and promptly burned the first batch. Shit. Max wandered in wearing only boxers, hair a mess, eyes soft. You okay? Just assaulting your coffee maker. Max leaned against the counter, arms folded, grinning like a man who'd just fucked his crush stupid and didn't regret a thing. Jacob narrowed his eyes. Don't you even dare say it. I wasn't gonna. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Max relented, laughing under his breath. Maybe something about how you're not good with wood unless it's mine. Jacob threw a dish rag at him. Max caught it one-handed, cocky as hell. The moment was easy, light, domestic. For once, it didn't feel like they were circling something dangerous. And then Jacob, still smiling, said it. I like this. Us. Whatever this is. Feels like, I don't know, a relationship. He said it gently, but it hit like a grenade. Max's face shifted. Barely. But Jacob saw it. The jaw tightening. The eyes dropping. The spine straightening like a soldier going back on duty. A relationship? Max echoed, carefully flat. Jacob blinked, caught off guard. Well, yeah. I mean, it feels like. Max stepped back. We fucked. That doesn't mean we're a couple. The air dropped 10 degrees. Jacob stared at him. Right. Of course. I forgot I'm just the guy who cooks your coffee and lets you inside him when the weather's bad. Max flinched. Don't. Jacob held his ground. Don't what? Say what this is. Max's voice rose a notch. I didn't ask for this. No, Jacob said. But you came for it. Dripping wet, half broken, and looking at me like I was the first place you'd ever felt safe. Max looked away, fists clenched. That's not fair. Jacob shook his head, suddenly tired. You don't have to want the same thing, Max. But don't lie about what just happened between us. Max didn't answer. He grabbed his jeans from the floor and pulled them on in silence, his body suddenly closed, tight. Jacob stood still in the middle of the room, bare-chested and aching. It had felt like morning. Now it felt like morning. Chapter 8. Splinters. Jacob didn't chase him. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But standing half-dressed in Max's cabin, Jacob realized that chasing a man who only knew how to run would break something in him too. So he left. Didn't slam the door. Didn't text. Just left Max alone, like he clearly wanted to be. He didn't cry until he got home. And even then, he hated himself for doing it. Because Max wasn't cruel. He wasn't careless. He was just cracked in ways Jacob didn't have the tools to fix. I don't want to fix you, Jacob whispered later that night into the dark, even though Max wasn't there. I just want to know you. But Max was nowhere to be found. He didn't come by the house. Didn't deliver lumber. Didn't show up in town. Not even at the local diner where old Mrs. Hart kept asking Jacob, "Where's that sweet flannel man of yours?" Jacob lied. Busy. Max was in the woods. 3 miles from the main road. Past the logging trail. Deeper than he usually let himself go, without a map or a reason. He'd brought no phone. No radio. Just a pack, a knife, and his memories. It wasn't safe. He didn't care. He built a small fire. Didn't bother with shelter. Sat on a flat rock beneath towering firs, and let the silence stretch so long it started to scream. And then he started remembering. The flashback came slow, like it always did. The desert heat. The noise in his ears. The flash of gunfire. The last look in Connor's eyes before. Max dropped his head between his knees. No, he growled. But it came anyway. Connor had laughed like Jacob did. Bright, startled, like the world still surprised him. He'd died with blood in his teeth and Max's name on his lips. And Max had never said it back. He never told him he loved him. Not once. That's what came apart inside him now, under the trees. What had splintered him, hollowed him, made him so goddamn afraid to want again. Because wanting someone meant someday losing them. And Max had already lost too much. His breath shook. His fingers dug into the dirt. He felt it rising before he could stop it. The sob. The next one followed fast. And then he was crying. Really crying. For the first time in years. Not with gritted teeth or fists clenched. But open. Messy. Loud. Alone in the woods, Max Newman, soldier, lumberjack, fixer of broken things, came apart. Because he wasn't bulletproof. Because he was tired of running from ghosts. Because Jacob Perry had touched something he didn't know was still alive. And now it was bleeding. Chapter 9. Rebuilding. Jacob was wrist-deep in concrete mix when he saw Max. No flannel. No truck. Just him, boots dusty, shoulders tense, standing awkwardly at the edge of the site like a man who didn't know if he still had the right to be there. Jacob didn't say anything at first. He let Max walk the distance. Let him come to him. Max stopped a few feet away. His eyes were red-rimmed, but steady. No jokes. No grin. Just that familiar quiet strength, stripped bare. "I'm sorry." Jacob held still. Max took a breath. "For leaving. For shutting down. For making you think you were something I could walk away from. You're not." He stepped closer. "I want this. I want you. I don't know how to do it right. I'll probably fuck it up again. But I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of running. And if you'll let me..." He paused, swallowing. "I want to stay." Jacob's heart slammed so hard, he almost dropped the trowel. He set it down slowly, then wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped in close, so close their chests brushed. "Okay," Jacob said. "But only if you promise to stop calling me city boy, like it's an insult." Max huffed a soft, shaky laugh. "Deal." They kissed, quiet, grounding, no heat at first. Just mouths finding each other again. Max's hand slid to the back of Jacob's neck. Jacob sighed against him, the tension leaving his body like breath. It wasn't frantic this time. It was slow, intentional. Max led him back to the cabin. Fingers laced the whole way like he was afraid to let go. Inside, there was no rush. Just peeling off layers, brushing lips across skin, whispering apologies into collarbones and open palms. When Max laid Jacob down, he didn't press. Didn't push. He asked. Every touch was a question. "Can I? Do you want this?" And Jacob answered every time with a yes, with a breathless moan, with the look that told Max he was exactly where he needed to be. They made love like they were both learning it for the first time. Like it meant something. Because it did. Max kissed down Jacob's chest, slow and reverent, tracing the line of his ribs with his tongue. Jacob gasped, carting fingers through Max's hair, tugging him closer, harder, but Max just smiled and took his time. When Max finally pushed inside, it was with a soft groan against Jacob's mouth, forehead pressed to his, hips rolling slow and deep. Their eyes locked. Nothing hidden. Nothing held back. "Jacob," Max whispered, like it was a confession, like it was a prayer. Jacob cupped his cheek, lips brushing his jaw. "I'm here." They moved together like they were rebuilding something, brick by brick, breath by breath, until they both shattered, wrapped around each other, clinging like it was the end of the world and the beginning of something better. Chapter 10. Home, finally. The pergola stood tall and proud in the backyard, cedar beams glowing gold in the late afternoon sun, string lights woven lazily through the rafters, soft music drifting from a little speaker by the table. A breeze teased the linen napkins. Someone had brought fresh pie. Laughter rolled across the lawn like it belonged there. Max watched Jacob from across the space, glass of whiskey in hand, half listening to a story from the town's librarian. Jacob was barefoot, shirt sleeves rolled up, talking with a couple from the city who'd driven in for the weekend. He looked relaxed, bright, home, and every now and then, he looked back at Max, always with that same quiet smile. Like Max was the best part of the view. The party was small, close friends, neighbors, a handful of people who had slowly woven themselves into their story, whether either of them realized it or not. A couple of the older ladies kept elbowing each other when Max and Jacob stood too close. Someone made a toast about unexpected foundations. Nobody cried, but Jacob definitely blinked more than usual. Later, in the kitchen, it was just the two of them. Max stood at the sink, rinsing pie plates. Jacob leaned in behind him, arms around his waist, mouth against his shoulder. "You're doing domestic," Jacob murmured, grinning. Max huffed. "I just hate sticky dishes." Jacob kissed the back of his neck. "You're a goddamn liar." Max turned, water dripping down his forearm, and caught Jacob's mouth with his. No fireworks. No tongue. Just a slow, claiming kiss that didn't ask for permission. Jacob leaned into it like he'd been waiting all night. When they pulled apart, Max stayed close. Nose to nose. "You're mine now, aren't you?" he said, soft but sure. Jacob's smile deepened. "I've been yours since the day you delivered wood and called it a personality." Max snorted. Still worked, though. After the guests left and the stars came out, Max wandered back to the pergola. A quiet moment, just him and the cool hush of night. He crouched by the base of the main beam, pulled out his pocket knife, and started to carve. M plus J. Just that. Simple. Permanent. He was halfway through the second curve when Jacob's voice came from behind him. "Took you long enough." Max looked up. Jacob leaned against the beam, arms crossed, watching him. The string lights made his hair look gold. His smile made Max feel 14. Max shrugged. Had to be sure. Jacob crouched beside him, ran his thumb over the carving. His fingers lingered on the plus between their letters. He didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Max reached over, curled his hand around Jacob's. They sat there for a long time. Nothing broken. Nothing running. Just two men who'd built something. Slow, splintered, messy, and finally made it home. Together.